So I got this way cool Aquaman logo, the Atlantean crest, you know, the thing that's on his belt. Right, I got one of those made, custom made by the superhero store, our friends at the superhero store. It is just too cool. It's basically a belt buckle, but what I did was I have extra Wonder Woman rope, so I said, you know what, I'm going to use that instead and just loop everything through it. So for really awesome things and, you know, books and action figures and all that good stuff, trek yourself down to the superhero store. You can find them on Facebook and you can find them on Instagram. Seriously, they're like one of the few places that I actually would recommend. Go to the superhero store. And they have jerseys and things, so, you know, that's always a plus. Check them out. Kaldur'ahm is in the his ass. Anyways, Aquaman, the story of how DC finally figured out that they have gods and, you know, they should use that to their advantage. And that how, you know, the main man, Superman, should always be their inspiration. Like I said in my initial notes, it's almost as if DC finally, well, not so much DC, Warner Brothers, because, you know, when people say there's a DC problem, I always counter that it's not a DC problem. If it was a DC problem, the comics, the animated series, the animated series and films, the new stuff, even Titans is getting a following. It's not a DC problem. It's a Warner Brothers problem. But I feel like if, you know, for the sake of it, like DC finally realized that they have Superman. Which is to say that no matter where the story turns, no matter what character you're doing, Superman is the pinnacle of how a DC film should represent their gods. And it's kind of funny because that's what Kevin Feige says he does for the MCU. Well, he and the Parliament. I think that his story group is called the Parliament. Kevin Feige and Jeff Johns are not just friends and huge nerds, obviously, but they both worked on the Richard Donner's Superman. So Kevin has always said that, you know, for him, Superman, Richard Donner's Superman, has always been their starting point when they're doing films. So back to DC, it was good to see, like with Wonder Woman and Aquaman, an origin story that carried that supermanic, I call it supermanic, that supermanic feeling. It was very well represented. And so I say to Warner Brothers, well done, Warner. Well done. Keep it up. So I can appreciate, in hindsight, a director's vision, but the fact that they're realizing that they're dealing with gods, with a human element, is good on them. Make the films big. Make the films bombastic. Make the films so out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be relatable. That's a phrase that everybody uses now because relatable is a thing. Relatable for me started off with Christopher Nolan's Batman, where, you know, instead of Ra's al Ghul being immortal, it's his philosophies that are immortal. And Bane's mask, you know, helps keep his pain away because, you know, he had a rough life. And Selina is not a metahuman, she's a grifter. So, you know, Christopher Nolan helped ground the idea of Batman, and that worked splendidly in reality and made him relatable. I mean, he lost his money and all that kind of stuff. When you watch like a Marvel movie, an MCU movie rather, there is a measure of being grounded in reality. And we take that grounded in reality and say, relatability. We need all our heroes to be relatable. And the reality is, you don't. Relatability, not representation. Representation is important. It really is. But the idea that a movie sells better because the characters are relatable, not so much. Has any one of us worked or been trained by the KGB? Have we flown on metal wings in combat? Have you been bitten by a spider? Have you been bitten by a spider to that level? Because, you know, some of us may have been bitten by spiders. Of course not. No. That is not to say that I don't understand what people mean when they scream relatability. What they mean is something like this. You may not have served in an army like Steve Rogers, but you do feel out of time, out of your element, no matter how close to people you are. That's Steve. And that is also true of Superman. He is literally an outsider, dulling down his self and his sensibilities to fit in and, you know, for all intents and purposes, be human on Earth. Superman is relatable, but because he flies and he's basically, you know, the Messiah, the modern Messiah, you know, people tend to be like, oh my God, nobody knows how to do Superman. Wonder Woman at her core is a story of a young woman who, even though she's lived a pretty sheltered life, she goes out against her mother's wishes and tries to make the world, man's world, an actual better place. That too is relatable. And Arthur's Aquaman is the story of a guy who basically comes from two worlds and two social orders. He does not fit in wherever he goes. It's like Trevor Noah, you know, you come from two worlds and you're trying to make both sides proud of you. That's relatable. That's Arthur. But also these characters are gods. Ideally, you want a god to understand you, but it's not necessary for them to relate to you per se. You know what I mean? Aquaman is a mixed race Poseidon, and his story has to be big. It has to be grandiose. It has to be full of scale. That's what this movie promised, and that's what James Wan delivered. Fun, huge, big scale, showing you the world of this god, this underwater god, and, you know, his world. All right, but let's just dive in a little bit into the issues first and then go into like the good part of the film. You'll hear people say things like it was corny or it was silly, or I saw somebody put up it was like a cartoon. Well, I mean, obviously, you know, duh. Sometimes I worry about how people respond to fandom. You either want it so dark and serious that it becomes a nuisance, or you complain when it's light and refreshing. But anyhow, the movie does have its issues, and the issues lie with the script and some of the story notes at times. You know, it's not a horror story or anything like that. Don't let anybody tell you differently. There were some script notes and some story notes that were expected. For me, I felt like there were some shots that were unnecessary, and some of the action feels just a little too bombastic. Now, after all my tirade there about, you know, it's about gods and it has to be bombastic, it may be just a little too much. There were one or two parts in there that I was like, overload. That's a thing to look out for in the middle of one of those scenes. They're walking up the Sahara and ocean to ocean place. I feel like at times the story does move fast, maybe too fast, and there is a glossing over a few things, especially when it comes to Queen Atlanta. There could have been one or two things that could have been added in to just explain a little bit more or give a little bit more to Queen Atlanta. Here's another issue. I needed a lot more Yahya. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, or as I call him, Dad. Now I will say this, it is a brother's story, so to that end, I guess it makes sense that we got like limited Yahya, but I really wanted more. But yeah, those are the issues. Those are my issues. I like that in Aquaman I got a conglomeration, I'm hoping I'm using that word right, but a conglomeration of different authors in the same film. For example, you get the savagery of Justice League, the animated series, that Arthur. You get the humor of brave and bold Arthur. And you also get like the actual telepathy of Super Friends. So you got all the different sides of Arthur in like one really good flick. That works. Amber Heard as Mira holds her own. I like that. I loved seeing her using her Atlantean magic. Mira has always been a statement for me. And so, you know, she's pretty much the brains of the organization, to be honest. He has said it himself. You know, there's a part in AQUAMAN where Arthur says to her, listen, I'm a blunt instrument. Point me in a direction and I will make things happen. You know, I'm paraphrasing. But she, however, has a head on her shoulders. My comic brain really wants them to do Flashpoint so I can see Mira and Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman in action. That would be fun and hilarious all by itself. Finally, I said this in my initial review, finally, a non-CG villain that I can root for on the DC side. And this is a thing that DC has going for them. DC has villains that are big and they are almost as equal to the gods. They give them a run for their money, and it is good when they're done right. So for me, like in Justice League, having Steppenwolf of all characters was not my idea of a fun time. I would have preferred, excuse me, if you had gotten like Helen Mirren and had her as Granny Goodness. That would have been way cool. So to have Patrick Wilson come in as Ocean Master, I was like, yes, I understood him. I agreed with him at times. His methods were pure, not good, but his motivations are understandable. It's kind of funny that Ocean Master is the younger brother of Arthur, but the way he operates, he has a more calculated head on his shoulder than the Bro King. This, like I said, this wasn't the Manta show, no doubt, but we got enough of his backstory and the why he is Black Manta and how he is Black Manta. He does know the Atlanteans, or at least he knows Orm. So, you know, they kept that together. I am excited to see more of Black Manta. You'll find him, if you stick around at the end of the film, there's a post-credits scene with him, and it sets up where the sequel could go with Black Manta, and I'm here for that. And clearly, I'm also here for Kaldur, so, you know, bring it.
Please allow me to officially introduce Kaldur'ahm, my son.
And is no one going to talk about the fact that Dr. Chase Meridian is Queen Atlanta? AQUAMAN is filled with One-isms. The Horror Meister does not, he does not disappoint. His monster work, so much One-ism, so much One-ism. And I'm like, well done, James. The CGI in AQUAMAN was so developed. It was so beautiful. Please view it as it should be seen, ideally in IMAX quality. The costumes flowed with the CGI. And, you know, I'm hearing now that people have an issue with like the hair. Oh my God, the CGI hair. And now what's up with the costumes? And it doesn't look real. It's Atlantis. Has anybody seen Atlantis? One. Two, really here, we're going to gripe about here when I had to sit down and watch, you know, the Inhumans. What was up with that here? Let's have that conversation. Get up and go and see AQUAMAN over the holidays. Get up and go and see it. You have some time. Go take it in. There is something for everyone. It gives more hope to the DC, the worlds of DC. By the way, that's the terminology that it's being called, the worlds of DC. It is not the DCEU. The DCEU was a term that was coined by a reporter, I believe. It was not even an official terminology. So the way moving forward from DC themselves, it's called the worlds of DC. That's why you can get like a Joker, standalone Joker movie and all that kind of stuff. But I digress. go see Aquaman. Go see it in IMAX. There, it is beautiful. It is rich in scope. It is good. It is a truly wonderful holiday gift to yourself and an early pre-birthday gift to me. So huzzah! I think I'm going to settle on 8.5 for it, but it is worth the 8.5. It is good. That's just me being picky. That's it for me. Remember to get yourself down to IMAX, go see it, check out the superhero store for all of those groovy things. I want to send out a special thanks as well to King's Lounge Barber and Spa because they were able to get me like real Kaldur-fied. So I was real happy about that entire scene. Bless up, guys.